feel and believe that God's source universe is my ultimate mother, my ultimate. Now, currently here in this human realm, of course, I have, biological parents. Though, as I am continuing to live and learn and develop new skills and learn more about my talents and gifts, and just kind of being out on my own a lot more at times. I've been finding out more and more how much sources have. When you start off at home, that's pretty much your starting point in life. And that's where you start off with pretty much the knowledge and information that your caregivers currently have at that present moment. And they're able to bestow that onto you and tell you about the world and life as much as they can, as much information that they have. And they'll pretty much give you as much as you need, and then as you drift out and finally start being on your own, so you can learn more and new stuff to broaden your mindset, to broaden your heart space and to put yourself out there more. So um, for a while, for a long time, what felt like a long time, I would say 2 years for me. I was like going through so many mental issues, trauma that I've caused onto myself mentally, and that I felt from different spaces, different environments that I've interacted with. And it took me, just from me being around certain mindsets, it pushed me into going into areas where I could, it pretty much like it was leading me into territories, areas that I didn't prefer. And it wasn't going to help me no longer. When I when I first stepped out of home, and again, like, well, not again, but first telling you this, but I grew up as a Christian. My grandfather was to be a pastor, and my grandmother was always into reading, and she wanted us to have that certain amount of knowledge as well. And once I got out of high school, I started to branch out and go to different Christian organizations looking for me at the time when I went to Mizzou for my first year of college. I was able to find a Christian group. And something happened there to where I no longer wanted to be a part of the Christian community anymore because I felt like a lot of people were being very much hypocritical. And the way I knew that was that I was becoming hypocritical. So it was just mirroring to me how hypocritical I was being as well to myself. So I'm in a group and they're like, come as you are, be who you are. I don't care what it is, you just always come there and talk like awesome. So that means you, in my eyes, I'm like, okay, that means you love me for who I am all the way. So when I was in that group, I went to my leader at the time because I was going through this back and forthness with a person that I felt like I was in love with at the time. That'd be another topic because I learned a lot from that as well. And at the time, again, I'm a person who prefers females. So since I'm a person that prefers females, you know, I can go talk to, somebody who was religious, who could, say that I can come as who I am so I can talk about this, with somebody who can possibly help me. So I was just like, hey, can we talk for a moment? And she was like, yeah, we can talk. So I went through and talked to her and I was like crying. I was in so much pain at the time and just pretty much going through it. And I was just like, man, I really want to be with her, but I feel like she keeps playing with me or something, or man, like every time I would hear her, she would say something, then she would start ignoring me. So I feel like she was playing games with me, but she was. And she was off and on back and forth saying, hey, wait for me, hold on, and I'm just like, wow, am I just waiting? At the time, it was like I didn't want to wait, I wanted to at that time. But it was causing me too many problems because she kept going back and forth and being different and stuff. So um, it was causing me to very much like in my head too much. It was confusing me. I feel like the whole thing was confusion and it brought me into this confusion energy. At the time, I was not speaking this way. So as I was speaking to her and I was telling my leader about this, I was telling her all about this. She was like, the only response she gave me was, baby, God is telling you not to be with women. You're supposed to be with men. And I instantly got out the car and just walked off. I just walked off. I literally wiped my tears off so fast and just walked off because you didn't help something. It was like, to me, a scenario of if I like chocolate ice cream and I stumble upon chocolate ice cream I didn't like, you're gonna tell me to stop eating chocolate ice cream flavor. What? To me, it was so weird. I just tried different plan, but at that time, I just told myself, I was like, just walk away because that's not the first time I was approached, or not approached, but I interacted with someone who was Christian or Baptist, and they would literally like down the fact that I'm interested in women, and that was one of the battles that I had to go through during some years in that process of just learning these things. And um, I was thinking like she totally never asked me anything about if I even dated guys, stuff that we had something and all that stuff. But I was just like a person doesn't even want to try to understand you in the first place and they're just going off of things what someone else is telling me that is operation. Like that's not the advice that I want. Like I want like a straight, genuine advice. And really, when I was there, she said it to me. My intuition said, "Yeah, and I never went back since to anything like to even ask anyone who was Christian about any type of advice. And I ended up going on a different journey. Uh, my oldest brother was like, "Hey," he called me. He was like, "Hey, man," and he puts me on to spirituality. Now I can't remember what this group was called at that time. I was about 19, 20 at the time, and he was like, "Hey, this can help you." So, he gave me a book. Well, at the time, he didn't give me the book yet. He gave me something to look up, a book to look up as a man thinks. And I only got to the first page before I already knew what he was telling me. um, because to me, for a long time, as well, now I'm kind of all over the place a little bit. But at the time, I just had an intuitive feeling like, man, I don't think Christianity is for me. I don't think it's telling the truth all the way. Like I feel like the Bible is fabricated. Everyone knows, just about almost everyone knows now that the Bible has been fabricated over and over again. And I'm pretty sure other dialects, I think I'm saying it like that voice, other writings, books of sorts have also, speak as well, have been fabricated over time. So as I was going through this confusing phase, I was able to have some help, and that's what was God is, sources showing me right now. Like, hey, sometimes God's social universe will speak through someone else to give you information. So in this case, they spoke through my brother to give me information that I can now embark on this journey in life. Now, Tom really couldn't help me as much, but all he can do is give me some of the start here. you know. And I was like, all right, cool, I'll go down this journey. And it turns out it was exactly what I was looking for. And so one of the things I looked at as well around that time frame was like I believe the Illuminati videos and stuff was coming out at that time. It was like 2014 or something like that. I started seeing a bunch of Illuminati videos come out about what's been going on to a lot of the artists and stuff that's been up there. And I was like, man, I definitely don't want to end up in a predicament like that. Like, what can I do, to not end up in those type of predicaments to where I'll lose myself like somebody else is running the show. So what God Source Universe was leading me down when I put that into the energy around that time. Around that time, it was about like 20, like 19 or 20 around that time. And when I put that frequency out, saying that this is not really down the journey, why this isn't, but why I didn't want that. And I learned that it was a bunch of lessons down that journey that I actually needed to learn for my soul purpose. It's a huge part of it. And I don't think when a lot of people go through things in life, things that happen to them, I'll say the vast majority of the time, your soul needs you to learn something from this. Now, a lot of times your intuition don't want you to go that far because you don't need to learn some lessons. But when you end up going down them, then kind of go have to learn them now because you are now going down a trail that you didn't really create for yourself, but you chose to go down anyway. And in this case, for me, I was like I really had like this girl, like she was like my center focus for almost 7 years, just about. Like I really wanted to be with her and all this, but she didn't want it at the time. Like me looking at that time frame from here to then, I can tell that she was in her own world and she was on her own. She was doing her own thing. So of course, and I was just literally beating myself up a lot because she was also a person who really talked bad to me, and then it got to the point where I started talking bad to her too. So it was like I was just adding more to it, and I had to just leave. So like just like not try to keep reaching out because for a while I became quite obsessive in a sense. Like I had to find her on social media somewhere, you know, and um, I would tell a source like, what was the whole point of that? The source would tell me, hey, you have to learn about your body. You had to learn how to value yourself more. You had to learn your self worth, which is why you got hurt. And you thought that was um, what you thought it was at the time, but it really wasn't. That was you. That was something that was reflecting onto you. So I'm like, okay, no, that strongly in a way. But she was also a person that was presented there as a reflection to my past trauma. So I was like, dang, and even a past life. And that's a story for another time too, because a lot of us don't realize that yes, you come in with everything you need, but you also can feel things from your past life. Again, we're in stacked realities, like we're in stacked realities, so we can feel things from when we were in our lower vibrational areas. We can feel ourselves in higher density. So in this case, I was just like, literally, I woke up today, and it's been about 10 years, maybe, something like that, since I was feeling that way. And during that time, I had a spiritual partner who I'm still currently with as well. And she was mirroring to me a whole lot of stuff that I was taking on that I didn't have to take on, and it was pretty chaotic arguments and stuff. And I noticed that I picked up a lot of these habits, these things of not being able to trust fully from um, the experience that I had with the person that I used to really, with my ex. But I found out. So, but at the time, I did find out a whole lot of things like, oh, she was playing. And she played with a lot of people until she finally came around and just been flat out honest with me, which it took like 5 years for her to say that she wasn't serious about it at all. Um, so whatever, but it's been about 10 years since then, and I woke up today and I was just like, my mind felt less foggier. Like it's so much, it's so clear. It's more than likely the clearest it has almost ever been in my life. Like I can't even remember the last time my mind has been this clear. And I literally just thank God, so His universe, for guiding me to this point. Because I'm like, what the? And literally throughout my journey, the source was helping me with a bunch of things. Like, then we get over this person, it was going to take 7 years. Because again, I was obsessing over this person for 7 years. So it's going to take me 7 years to get over this person. And I was like, man, this seemed like a long time, but I actually made it through it. And then I had to get through some other things that I had went through as well. And a lot of things made me feel so crazy and maniacal, not in a good way, to where I would overly process things. So, like, during that time frame, I'll say maybe about 5 years ago, um, I had a friend, and I no longer talk to him anymore. I had so leave, but I decided to just keep it that way. It's the fact that I don't want this person as a friend anymore. And I also learned in the universe that some things come back around if it's aligned with you. So sometimes things come back around to see you're aligned. Sometimes they come back around to test you. So keep in mind and use your discernment when it comes to that. But I didn't want to be around them because at the time, about 5 years ago, um, that was when I was like still experiencing things. Like I was experiencing psychedelics at the time. And before then, I was partying a lot. So I was partying a lot in my earlier 20s, partying a lot. And even in my very late teens when I was in college, I was partying a lot too. And one time for his birthday, it was about, I want to say, I still want to say 5 years ago, but about 5 years ago, I was just in there, at this party. We my switch party with her. She's in England, anyways, when it comes to people talking about things that she's very much interested in. And my friend, he's there, and his sister comes. Sister goes to the bathroom, and I ended up um, taking, I ended up doing meth when I thought it was mine. I thought it was MDMA, but it was meth. And I didn't find that out until 2 weeks later. And I was just like, he calls and tells me, he's like, I don't know if I should tell you. And to me, that was red flag number one. Even though he was already sending out red flags. But he was like, I'm not sure if I want to tell you this, but well, my sister Brown, who was actually meth, it wasn't, it was just like, you want to tell me something. Because I still been feeling quite jittery since that day. And honestly, when I did the Molly, it didn't, the MDMA, which is the purest form, it didn't feel, I didn't feel all wonky and stuff or jittery. I didn't start feeling that way until I had whatever that was that day. And I thought it was just that stuff. And I found out it was that. And I was like, oh, now I have to cleanse my system. And so I had told him that. I was like, I want to talk to her, can you talk to her about this and see what's going on? I was like, sure. Because I want to talk to her. The day comes, and again, I'm actually allowing him to, like me and my partner, we have our apartment, so a different apartment, not the same one. You're like, hey, like we was just let him, stay there because he didn't have anywhere else to stay. And I was telling him like, hey, can you, talk to your sister about this? Like I want to know what's going on. He's like, all right, I will. And it took some time, like it took like some months or something until what's going on because the whole family was upset. So that was a whole thing for a while until I brought it back up to him again. I was like, hey, you ever get around back to talking to her? He was like, I'm just going to let it go, leave it alone. She's family. We forgive. And I'm like, you didn't even get an answer. Like, you didn't even really, I wanted to talk to her about this. Like, what's going on? I'm like, whatever. Like, you know, at the time. And at the time, I'm still up for doing my and MDMA here and there. That was something I did like every, I don't know, 5 months maybe. I don't know, spread out. So as I'm doing my experience of experiencing different types of psychedelics and stuff, it was helping me tap into like spiritual abilities that I've never tapped into before. And I'm like, Source, this is intense, but I loved it at the same time, but it was intense. And one day, my spiritual ability tapped in, and I was just taking a shower, about to get ready to go to my family event. And I go in the closet, well, before I go in the closet, I'm in the shower, taking a shower. And all I do is get a flash in my mind. Well, I guess I should start here. Before I went to shower, my friend was staying there. He was like, hey, okay if I invite a friend over? And I was like, sure, which one is it? He's always one that you already know. I was like, okay, cool. I go hop in the shower, take a shower, in the shower, in my mind, I literally seen a flash of it was the sister who the leftover that night of his birthday. And I was like, no, tell her to come. That's not gonna do that. And I got the shower, go in my closet, and I walk in my closet and put my stuff, start getting dressed, putting my stuff on. My spiritual partner, she comes in there and she's like, hey, you know that he's his sister here? I was like, what? She's like, yeah, she's here. And I was like, in awe because it was just everything was hitting me at once. I was like, whoa, just saw this in my mind. And I was like, I didn't think nothing of it. I was really minding my business. I didn't think nothing of it. And then I literally go in the closet, put my clothes on. She's telling me this. And I'm getting this. I go out there and she was there. I was like, wow. And her son was there. So I instantly thought, I was like, at least I can just talk to her and I'll get an answer. And I talked to her and I got an answer. And I don't want to go too deep into it, but from her answer, it just instantly I felt like she was just lying to me. And I instantly was just like, she ended up leaving and everything. I told him, I talked to him later. I had to go to a family event and wind up leaving. And like the next day, he was off packing and leaving too. So at that time, I'm up thinking about like, man, how did I make it through? Like, like, 'cause I started to have intense things happen after that. After taking the nap, like my emotions, I was getting very angry, like instantly. Like I kept getting angry. I didn't understand why I kept getting angry. I was getting very anxious. Um, I was overly thinking, like it was distorting my mind, and I was just bothered for some time. And I know a lot of people, if they saw me, they'd be like, "Oh, she cool," and I'm like, honestly, I guess I'm a really good actor because I guess I found a way to still move through life without letting people know like oh, this is going on or showing it because I guess I can just hold it very well. And it took me some years to get through that. Like the shrooms, the solid being really helped a lot during the process, which I recommend for people who are ready and who are open to do. Not everybody can do this because they're just not ready to face themselves yet. So you only can do that when you're ready to really face yourself, and you got to be open to it as well. But during the time when I was taking them, it was helping me see things. I was just like, okay, like that was meant to happen. Um, but now I know how to work through it, and you know, I was able to talk to my ancestors. I believe it does something different to everybody. It has them tap into their psychic abilities or their spiritual gifts in a different way. For me, I was able to literally speak to my ancestors at the time, and it felt safe and secure. You know, I was able to process a lot of anger that I had, and resentfulness that I had during those times. So, like after that, like I'm probably doing shrooms like 3 times after I spaced them out, and I'll keep reminding myself like, so how did I make it through? Oh God. Like you really had my back because you really helped me get through some stuff and know how to hold myself because when I had a conversation with her, it took everything in me to like not get out of character, but I kept feeling like energies wanted me to get out of it. Certain energies would want you to get out of character, so they would bring different people into your life to get you out of character and have like just not be yourself at all. And it's important to notice when that's happening. And Source was showing me like, hey, you didn't want you to like, blow up like that. We want you to do it that time. And I was understanding over time of why they didn't want me to blow up and fall on people or anything like that. And it was more so because of the fact that when you do that, especially when you're prone to absorbing other people's energies, but when you do that, because sometimes it's necessary to go off something or put them in check, put them in place or something. But and when I say put them in check or put them in place, I'm like place them where it's supposed to be. Like it's supposed to be this way. That's what. You know, but you don't want to do that because you mess around and you end up in a different position in life that you didn't want for yourself. You didn't have the vision for yourself to even end up in such a messed up predicament. And I've just been pretty much standing more and more in gratitude the entire time that I've been here right now. honestly, I feel so much more like myself. It's something to feel like me. Seriously, like, and I always stress to people like it's important to feel like yourself. Go out to the world, like choose what you want, pick activities and try them out. And if you don't like them, you don't like them. Try different activities, try different, or try doing something else. Who are you with doing these things with? Because you don't want to go out and try to do different things either. And it's inside. You don't want to go out and try to do new stuff and fun things with someone who's like miserable with themselves and miserable with their lives, unless you know that you can help them with that. That's a different story. But when you're embarking on these things and you're noticing all these things in wrong for you, you should definitely try doing them by yourself or with people who actually enjoy doing this stuff too or trying things out too. So that's a very important thing. So, like when I woke up today, it was like I had a brand new pair of eyes. Like everything wasn't so murky or dusty in the air or gloomy, anything like things were just clear. And I was just like, thank you so much. You just made me, you just helped me get through it. Source really had put me on a diet. Because sometimes Source would have you go detox and go take care of yourself. Sometimes Source would have you sleep for long periods of time. Sometimes Source wants you to be isolated because I definitely had to isolate myself from my partner I had. So I knew something was wrong with me. Just I had to get it. I had to get work on myself. God's universe helped me work. And that's why I'm like, whenever I went through something in life and I had so much going on with myself that was causing me, especially mental health problems, like literally, Source always had my back every single. Because when you are out in the world and you're on your biological parents aren't going to be there. Like they're not going to be next to you every step of the way. Okay, like they're just not. So you have to put yourself. To me, I felt I had to put myself into a position to know who I am, to know what kind of life I wanted for myself, and how to move and help myself at times. Because I knew that, you know, my parents, this is the information they gave me, this is how far it can take me, but I knew I had to take myself and God had to help take me the rest of the way. So this has been turned into something that is a lifestyle for me. Then a practice is now a lifestyle that I walk towards. I walk with God's solution every time, everywhere I go. And it was difficult at first because I'm used to the part of living at home with my parents, with my mom, because you know they're separate. With my mom and my grandmother, because those two, you know, with the caregivers of the home, and so it's like that. So they were there a majority part of my life, so I always had them. But once I left, I was like, man, I'm gonna have more. Like I have my partner too, but I don't want to. My thing is not to push stuff onto my partner. Like she has her own stuff, her own responsibilities in her life. But for me, coming to her every day, no, I could even tell like that can be very irritating for your partner to try to hold that much um, emotions that I have that I felt were very much unbalanced at the time. It was a lot, you know. So I had to learn how to rely on God's first universe to guide me and to know how I want to and keep going in life and learn how things affect me to grow. So when I chose to deep in my connection with Source. I've been deep in connection with Source for about 5 years now. I've been on a journey for quite a while, for about 10 years, but I've been very deep in it for the last 5 years. And I've done so much work under Source. And a lot of the workings I didn't even really realize that those were things I was supposed to do at the time. And it just strengthened me in different ways. One of the things that I also noticed within my abilities growing up, well, not growing up, but during this time frame, I say in the last 8 years, has been my dreams. And my dreams, I didn't start writing down my dreams until no friend of mine was in one of my dreams, and I told her about it. And literally in the dream, it was two versions that was going on. One version of the dream, someone close to her pulled out a weapon on her. And then the other part of the dream was when she was, uh, what's the word? I don't feel that word, but she was taken out. So I had to, I didn't know what to do with that. I woke up from it and I was like, whoa. I was like, what the? It blew my mind. My first partner was like, I think you should call intelligence. And I was like, okay, but it was the first one I've ever had, and I didn't know what to do with that. It's so strange. We're about 24 years old, 25 times. I'm like, and this is just happening. I'm like, I don't get it. Okay. So I told her, and she was like, I told her everything. I was like, I didn't know what to do with this information. Partner to tell you. Um, because at the time I didn't believe that dreams really was this all that, you know. I was just, so should I say I was unaware. And 2 weeks later, the same friend calls me. She's like, right. She's like, right. That's what just happened. This person literally pulled this out on me and I had to get out of there. But I knew how to handle myself in a calm way to where I can get out of that situation. And she was just, thanking me for that. And I was instantly mind blown. I was like, whoa. So, like, when I was going through that part of experiencing the feeling of, man, I should help this person, but I didn't even know that this would help. I didn't even know that this was really going to happen. This is some serious stuff. And after that, I started writing my dreams down. Every time I had a dream, especially when I could remember the fullness of it, straight every time. And it was taking me down another rabbit hole where the spiritual gifts would become so strong, and it was too difficult for me to analyze them or evaluate them to the point where I had to really take long periods of time to rest and to meditate for very long periods of time. Like it was a season where I meditated literally almost entire days just to help me with this. I didn't realize it was helping me until I was talking to Source. The Source was like, yes, I had to do this. This is what I wanted you to do so that you can help strengthen your abilities and your gifts and so that you can rest better and rest easier. Because this is a lot of information I'm throwing at you. And these are a lot of things that you're waking up to and becoming more aware of. So I'm like, thank you, Source. So it was times when I did that and I was scared to do that. And I was deciding the Source. I was just like, hey, we got rent to pay. we got these bills to pay, man. What's up? What's going on with that? You rest. So meditate. I'm like, okay. And I went and did so. It got to the point where I had to leave my job, and I was a phlebotomist for like 3 years. And I was just like, I had to quit that job. That job was too it was too toxic for me. It was not the environment for me. Plus, I was going through all these awakenings. I was like, no, I gotta go. This ain't it. And I literally began painting like almost every day. I was painting or working on a painting or something like every day. I was painting. I was writing down my dreams, meditating here and there, and I began to ground myself in nature. I mean, and from that, I source started to have me go out more. Okay, go outside, go out to these events, go to a portrait event or something. I was like, okay. So start going out, and I was like, oh, I remember my mom's portrait. And I started to write poetry again because I remember that I was writing poetry when I was like 11, 12 years old. I've been writing a bunch of poems at that time. And I was like, I can step back out here. And once I started putting myself out there and speaking on the mic, like, I started getting people like, hey, what else do you do? Like, what do you be doing? And they was like, oh, I do art. You know, and they was like, oh, you can come be a vendor. And it's like, it's like, yeah. I was like, okay. And literally, I was going down from that. I was going down a rabbit hole, or should I say, I was in complete alignment with my path that source was taking me. And source was like, here you go. And literally, he was able to start making payments. We did get some housing assistance as well, and they was helpful too. And I was just like, whoa, like at the time I couldn't really see it clearly because I was still going through these things. When you looking at that time, I was like, whoa, like source really had my back. So as I was going down that path of exploring my artistic abilities, I was also still encountering parts of myself that I had wounds in. I was learning that I had money wounds. I was learning that I had communication style wounds of expressing myself when I wasn't, when I felt disrespected or mistreated, or even if somebody didn't really mean to, or whatever it could have been, but I had difficulties expressing that part. Like I had no problem with explaining about teaching about something or anything like that, or experience, but I always had issues with talking about how someone else made me feel like that with me too many times. So that was usually it was a very uncomfortable position to be in at the time when things were happening. And literally, like everything was coming. I was just not fully, I didn't feel fully prepared for it because I was like, I don't feel, like at the time I didn't feel fully deserving of it because I had this lack in communication. So it was mirroring to me of how much I lack communication with myself. So I had to come back into myself and be honest with myself. And I went in so many times, like dozens of times. I went to help myself with a lot of complications I was having with myself. Learning how to develop a healthier communication style, learning how to develop my way of being honest. Like I'm always honest, but a new way of being honest, unapologetic. And Source was guiding and helping me. Sometimes Source would be like, hey, go check this person out. And I would stumble upon someone who's teaching about communication style. Source even guided me to having a mentor. She talked to her goddaughter now, my partner. But she's got me in a training course right now learning about communication. So I'm like, sometimes Source will lead you internally, or they might have someone who's open and receptive to this godlike energy to speak through them so they can give the message to myself. And for that, I'm like super duper grateful. Like I've been in plenty of predicaments to where it hurted me mentally and my heart a lot too, because I noticed that I give a lot, and I had struggled with receiving for a long time because of how much I gave. Um, whether it was giving almost all the money out my pocket to somebody too many times, whether it was me giving too many benefits of the doubts to people, whoever it could be, but it's definitely been a journey to what it ended up showing me now that I'm at the end of it. It really showed that that's how people get controlled in the Hollywood. And I'm not really even sure the United States where maybe half of it, but a lot of people in Hollywood for sure, that's how a lot of them end up being controlled in the world from their lack of awareness and how cruel people can be or they can get if you have a lack of boundaries and you don't have yourself as a top five value in your life, as a top priority in your life. So it's very important to hold yourself accountable for your own self and your own actions and become aware. It's important for you to hold yourself accountable for, okay, now I know the information is out there for me. What I have to do is simply ask, and it will be given to me the information that I need. And it will show you how to be more yourself through my journey. It just, man, it really just opened my eyes up more to so many different pathways that I could have chosen, but I didn't because I'm not going to say that I don't want to use the word I could have because it happened the way it's supposed to happen. And honestly, I couldn't have had it any other way. True. And this is like a reminder of like saying, like, I know that what I wake up to in the morning or in the rises, I wake up to myself first. And I wake up to myself first every morning. It's me first. So I know that I'm always going to be the one to mainly have that at the end of the day. Or just even and out all the time. I'm the main one in my reality. And I feel like a lot of people are afraid to make themselves the main character within themselves. And it's important to do that as well. But that's a topic for it. But it's taught me those things to keep in mind because some people will really come and smile on your face. But since you're a person who constantly allows things to constantly happen in your life, because that friend I had, I allowed him to get away with way more stuff than just that in the beginning of that talk with the whole incident. Because I let him get away with that for months, but I let him get away with way too much stuff, and it caused some damage to me mentally and emotionally. And over the time, I was able to work on that, heal from it, grow from it, and understand it. It's like one of the biggest things I learned as well was to forgive myself. I had to forgive myself, and I forgave him as well. Even though I didn't have to verbally say it to him, I do forgive him, but no, I don't. I don't want to be in no connection with them no more. And even with my ex, like his forgiveness, I had to forgive myself for that too, as well. Like I had to forgive myself for allowing it to keep playing in my face, allowing it to keep lying to me in my face and playing, calling me whatever she wanted to call me. Like I had to forgive myself, and I also had to forgive myself. And I clearly told her directly too, like that was, I said some reckless, harsh stuff to her. But once or twice, I still wanted to apologize for that too. And it taught me a whole lot about that too. Once I started to forgive and just to that source and let God's universe take care of it. It took weight off my shoulders that I don't even have to worry about that no more. Like that's no longer for me to even be a concern anymore. This is for anyone who's been through any of those things or who are going through something. Like work on you first, and just know like whatever they're doing or whatever they're choosing to say and do, that's something that they really chose to say and do, whatever. And a part of you was mirroring that to allow it. Because for me at the time, when I was allowing so much to happen and stuff to give, and give so many chances, I noticed that I was people pleasing a lot. And not only I was people pleasing, I was overgiving, oversharing my spaces, and just above all, just not really being myself. So since I wasn't, those people was mirroring to me how much they weren't being themselves either. So like when you become an energetic match to something I learned, it's like the people pleaser is gonna be a person who's that whatever you are energetic match to something that is like in that area. So like for example, if you're a narcissist, there's the people pleaser or energetic match. And that's just one example of how that works. So I'm gonna close this out and I'm gonna do another breathing exercise to close this out. And we're gonna do the 5 seconds breathing in and the 5 seconds breathing out. And 5 in, 5 out, 5 in, 5 out. Release anyone or anything that doesn't serve so that you can allow and open up the gateways and the doors to things that do serve you. Hope this helps. You have a great day and a wonderful time.